Hello, hello, hello. It's Thursday, and it's time for our next reading of Meet Me by the Christmas Tree. And last week, or last week, it was 2 days ago. Actually, I'm a minute early, so I'm going to wait a second or two. Okay, actually, it's 7 o'clock. So I'll go, and I know that a lot of people listen to the recordings because it's getting to be the holiday time, which means people are going to be together with their friends and their family. And so I want to wish, if you aren't here, a Merry Christmas or Happy Hanukkah. And but then also, I'm it's cold here in Montana, so I have been staying home, haven't left the house. So I know there are some people that are in for a good story. Hi there, Kim. How are you doing? I'm waiting for that's- Kim wasn't feeling well, and nobody was feeling well. It was cold up here. Like we have ice inside our windows. It was that cold. Oh, good. Good, good, good. Are you ready for I'm excited to read the next two chapters. And now that you're here, it's a little more fun. It's like I'm talking to a friend. All right. So the last time we read, Holly met Liam. They had their second meet cute, and she set him up with her friend Kim. Well, then the next day, they were at a gift-a-thon where they wrapped presents in okay. And Holly and Liam were paired, and Madison and Mark, Liam's sister and Holly, Liam's brother and Holly's sister were paired, and they had hit it off. And but then Holly noticed Liam looking at somebody else. Now, what she doesn't realize is he's looking for the owner of the angel pin in the red sweater. So she thinks he's not interested, and we will go from there. So and the title of this chapter is Snow Hill. And if anybody wants to read ahead, because like I'm a reader aheader, this I'm reading actually from the Paradise Hills Christmas. It's a three Christmas stories, and this is the first one, and it is 99 cents, so it's not that expensive if you want to get the ebook version of this. And actually, the print book version should be available like within the next couple of days. But we're going from there. Snow Hill. Liam snapped a picture of the snow hill to post on his Instagram page. He learned that the more he posted pictures to his page, the less the paparazzi bothered him. By the time they shared the information about him, it was old news. As a gesture of goodwill, he allowed them to use his pictures on their sites. He lowered the angle of the camera and took a selfie with his nephews playing with Holly and her nieces behind him. The five of them had lined up their toboggans and were poised for a race down the snow hill. Holly's coat matched her niece's. Their bright red down coats with black buttons contrasted the snow. They were the perfect image for a winter clothing line advertisement. His nephew's North Face dark blue coats made it easier for the eye to discern between the boys and the girls. Liam changed to video mode and recorded Holly standing in front of the four kids with her arms in the air. Her arm dropped, and the kids pushed off to slide down the hill. He chuckled in response to the squeals and yelling as the kids bounded down the hill that was a little longer than 25 meters long. Holly's knees rose and fell as she ran down the hill after the kids. It was the image of life in small town Montana that he wanted to share with his fans. Liam ended the recording and uploaded it to his page. With the hats, gloves, thick coats, and sunglasses, nobody would be able to identify Holly or any of the kids. After having to file a couple of restraining orders against fans who wanted to be a little too involved in his life, Liam made sure to limit the pictures that revealed specific details about his family and friends. He wrote the comment, "When you want to feel like a kid, grab your nephews and go outside to play. Hashtag Montana, hashtag winter fun, hashtag snow day, hashtag family." Satisfied with his post, he placed the phone in a pocket hidden inside his jacket and joined in the fun. Something sharp poked him in his hip. Liam reached inside his pants pocket to find the angel pin he had taken from the sweater he found. He rubbed his thumb along one of the angel's wings as though rubbing it would bring him good luck. His meetup with Kim was fun, but didn't lead him any closer to the mystery woman. 10 minutes after Holly left, Liam figured out Kim wasn't the girl from the theater when she mentioned barely getting out of her candy store in time to see the parade. When he found the woman who owned the pin, he'd ask her out and return it to her. If he was lucky, she'd be his one. Prince Charming had a shoe, Liam had an angel pin. Liam smiled at the comparison. The fairy tales never told the story from the prince's point of view. He remembered the prince going from house to house in the kingdom to find Cinderella, and that Cinderella took care of her stepsisters. If she hadn't had the other shoe, the prince might not have believed her. Liam promised himself to keep his heart open to whatever he encountered. If this woman was the one, the circumstances where she came from didn't matter. In the meantime, hanging out with Holly and her nieces satisfied him. He marveled at how he didn't know Holly one day, and the next, she was a common element in his life. Every time it was a coincidence, like today. He and his nephews arrived at the hill to find Holly and her nieces already there. Liam's eyes followed Holly as she trudged up the hill with the toboggans in tow. On each side of her, his nephews held onto the rope and marched beside her. Her nieces walked behind. One of them fell, but hopped up and recovered. One of his nephews must have said something funny because Holly's head tilted back in what looked like laughter. It dawned on Liam that he was supposed to be down there with them. He hustled down the hill. When he reached Holly, he said, "Let me take that from you." There was no argument or, "I don't mind doing this for you." It was as though she expected him to do his part. She handed him the two toboggans from her left hand. Between breaths, she said, "Thank you for joining us." Her comment didn't match the situation. Liam had taken 5 minutes to upload his images to Instagram. It wasn't like he was asking her to play with his nephews while he went off and did whatever he liked. He asked, "What kind of person would take their nephews for an outing and not play with them?" Holly gazed up to the top of the hill. Her eyes returned to a spot ahead of her. "You'd be surprised." She paused before adding, "At least I was." This time, Liam found himself surprised by what she said. Holly had to have been 5 foot 5 inches and maybe 130 pounds. The only reason he knew was because the industry he worked in sized women all the time. "Is that why you broke up with him?" She replied, "I wish," and rushed away from Liam. He hurried to catch up to her with her. "You want to tell me about it?" They were at the top of the hill. Holly said, "No, he's not worth the breath it would take to talk about him." She passed off the toboggans to her nieces so they could form another line. Savannah, the oldest of Holly's two nieces, asked, "Do you want to go down, Aunt Holly?" "I'm too big." Holly fiddled with the string connected to the flap on Savannah's hat. The child's eyes alternated between Holly and the toboggan. "I thought two people could ride and fit." "Two little people." "I have an idea," Clayton piped in. "What if your aunt rode one toboggan and my uncle took the other? Us kids could double up and race them." "That is a great idea." Cole ran to the sled furthest away. "The kids could get the outside sleds and the grown-ups get the middle ones." Liam nor Holly agreed or objected. All four children ran to their respective toboggans. The older ones held onto the rope and guided their siblings. "I don't know about this." Holly's lips formed a frown that was so adorable, Liam wanted to kiss it away. Caught by his reaction, he moved to create some distance between them. "Are you afraid you will lose?" Cole held on to the front of the toboggan while Clayton lowered himself in position behind him. "That's what people say when they think they're going to lose. I see it all the time on the playground." Holly's mouth fell open. She pointed at Liam. "Your nephew is trash talking me." "From my point of view, he's calling it as he sees it." "Loser has to buy the winner a cup of cocoa." Holly rushed to get into position. "I didn't bring any money," Cole complained. "I'll cover you," Liam said and nodded toward his nephews. They nodded back. The situation matched what he wrote on his post. "If you want to feel like a kid, go play with them." Holly, falling in line with the activity, was the striking of a match on a flint. It lit something in Liam. He watched her scoot the sled to propel it forward. Her behavior caught him unaware. Liam was used to women doing something for a reaction and following up with a reinforcement. They throwed him a sexy glare to seal the emotion. Holly left the circumstance to do it for her. Liam yelled, "No cheating!" "Fine," Holly yelled. She scooted. "On your mark." Her eyes roamed from right to left. Clayton and Cole and Savannah and Brooklyn inched forward. With the next scoot, she called out, "Get set!" She never got to say go. All four toboggans soared down the hill. The cold air rushed by and stung Liam's ears. His toboggan bounced as it passed over rocks. In his head, he knew he wasn't going that fast. However, it felt like he was flying over the ground. Holly was inches ahead of him, but then she veered toward the right. It was enough of a change in course for Liam to catch up to her. All four toboggans slid out, and the riders toppled in the snow. That was so much fun, Cole yelled. Yeah, we go faster when there's two of us riding together. Clayton dusted the snow off of his pants. I'm getting cold. Brooklyn held out her hands. That's our sign. We need to get something to warm us. Holly rubbed her hands over Brooklyn's. Who won? Savannah asked. The simultaneous crash made it difficult to discern who finished first. Liam held his hands up and shrugged. I don't know. Maybe we should go again and watch better next time, Clayton suggested. One more time? Holly asked Brooklyn. Her niece grinned and nodded. The boys yelled, Yeah! Grabbed their toboggan and ran up the hill. Liam held the rope to the boys' sled while Holly grabbed hold of her niece's sled. They walked side by side while the girls ran ahead to the top. Liam said, I'm glad we found you out here. This is more fun with you. I can say the same about you, Holly grinned. There's something about sharing a moment with someone that makes it special. Again, she caught Liam off guard. Based on her earlier statement, he expected to hear a hint of bitterness in her voice. Instead, he heard the pleasant tone of gratitude. Holly was just a family friend. Liam couldn't begin to imagine what the person who owned the pin in the pocket would be like. The music reminded him of his purpose. After he dropped off his nephew, he'd take a stroll down Main Street. If he was lucky, he'd find his Cinderella tonight. The first place he'd go would be the big tree. It helped his father. Surely it would work for him too. That's the end of that chapter. Hi, Laura. I see you. I'm going to take a little sip of tea and then I'll go on to the next chapter, Meeting by the Christmas Tree. All right. Now, Holly's boss, Rebecca, called shortly after dinner. Let's get some coffee and just have some girl time on Main Street. How could Holly argue with, we need some time away from the salon? Holly and Rebecca worked side by side for hours, cutting and styling hair in Rebecca's salon. Rebecca's go-get-'em attitude, combined with her love of anything hair and makeup, made Styles and Smiles a fun place to work. Holly had to laugh. While Rebecca said she was stepping away from the salon, it wasn't completely true. She'd noticed the hair and makeup of every person and try to merge it into a new style. Can we stop by the theater? Holly needed to get her sweater. While she was there with Rebecca, she may as well cross that off her to-do list. I don't want to see either of the movies playing, Rebecca groaned. I left my sweater there when I went to the theater with my nieces. Holly told her about leaving the first movie early, but left out the part about forgetting it after grabbing a hold of Liam's arm. Why didn't you go back? Rebecca laughed at her friend's silliness. Holly admitted to being embarrassed about the whole situation. It was close to the middle of the theater, so everybody saw me bolt. Liam hadn't figured out it was her, and for that she was thankful. His friendship meant a lot to her, and all the time they had spent together, he hadn't treated her like she was lucky to be in his presence. Despite all the attention he received, he was a humble person who seemed to value what his family thought over the opinion of others. Sure enough, her sweater was at the lost and found at the theater. The same person she bumped to when she left the theater was there to give her the sweater. This time, a name tag identifying him as Brian was pinned to the chest of his shirt. When Brian returned the sweater to Holly, she immediately noticed the angel she pinned to the collar was missing. My grandmother gave me that pin, she moaned. It was irreplaceable. Brian had them wait by the counter while he checked the lost and found to see if he overlooked the pin. He returned with a flashlight. We can check and see if it's got stuck in the seat. Holly hoped the small pin that was a little smaller than her thumb would be there. She held the flashlight while Brian stuck his gloved hand in between the cushions to find the pin. First, he pulled out a handful of raisins and made a face. We need to vacuum these out more often. He made one last attempt and pulled out a $10 bill. Ah, that's a pleasant surprise. Holly used the $10 to drown her sorrows at the bakery at the end of the block. With legs ready for rest, Holly and Rebecca each bought a cup of tea to go along with the cookies Holly purchased. They took their treats with them and sat on the bench in front of the big Christmas tree. Instrumental holiday music from the speakers in front of the stores added to the festive atmosphere. Holly thought back on her attitude 3 days ago, and her heart warmed. She was thankful for the circumstances that led to the changes that taught her to appreciate the gift of family and friends. When Dax broke up with her, she would have sworn it was the end of the world. 6 months later, she concluded that she may have lost a boyfriend, but the support of her friends and family gave her but the support her friends and family gave her outweighed anything he offered. She marveled at how life had a way of sweetening situations that could make someone bitter. Case in point, she lost a pin. In its place was money to buy a bag full of soft ginger cookies. The cookies reminded Holly of her grandmother, who used to bake them every holiday season. I think Simone uses real butter in these cookies. Holly nibbled on her cookie to make it last a little longer. Simone baked cookies for the coffee shop on special holidays. Everyone looked forward to tasting her treats on Thanksgiving, Christmas, Valentine's Day, and Easter. The only other time people could get a taste of her baking was when she offered her treats as a raffle prize for a fundraiser. When Simone visited the salon for an update to her hairstyle, Holly tried to trick her into revealing the secret behind her coveted baked goods. Simone always replied, "You can get the recipe off my Pinterest board. It's love that makes the difference. I think of the people I'm baking for while I'm cooking." Holly didn't believe Simone, but what could she say to something as profound as baking with love? Until she came up with another way to ask, she dropped the discussion. "I've tried to make these a million times and they never turn out this chewy." She broke the cookie in two and offered half to Rebecca. "A million times." Rebecca arched her right brow and the corners of her mouth tilted upward. "You're a lot older than I realized." "Okay, slight exaggeration, but I've tried every way to Sunday. Bake them for less time, set them in the oven at a high temperature, and then lower it. One time I set a pan of water in the oven, hoping that the steam would make the difference." Holly eyed the bag in her hand. She bought a half dozen cookies to share with her nieces. If she ate one more, they'd be none the wiser about her indulgence. Holly reached into the bag and pulled out another cookie. "Do you want half?" She saw two men approach. The casual saunter hinted at one of them being Liam. The man who accompanied him walked with an equally confident gait. Liam wore a pea coat while the other man wore a leather coat with a hoodie. Both men wore skull caps. Rebecca leaned in to speak in Holly's ear. "Yowza! Too bad he doesn't live here year round. You happen to know his friend's name?" The man who accompanied Liam was clean shaven, and despite layers of clothing, it was clear that he had an athletic build. Holly snickered at her friend's commentary. While Holly preferred to hold her feelings closer to her chest, Rebecca shared them as soon as she could put words to them. The differences made the friendship a good pairing. Rebecca forced Holly to acknowledge the background noise in her head that prohibited her from enjoying situations. Holly, on the other hand, developed a look in her eye that helped Rebecca identify when she should let other people speak. Liam and his friend stopped in front of Holly and Rebecca. He flashed a grin that made Holly's breath hitch. "If I didn't know any better, I'd say you were following me." "Psh, I'd say it's the other way around," Holly sassed. She held up her bag of cookies to share. "Men always appear when the cookies are fresh." "If that's a story you want to tell yourself, go right ahead." Liam, okay, okay. Liam reached into the bag for a cookie, he said. "It so happens I wanted a cookie," and took a bite. Then he reached into the bag, took out another cookie, and handed it to his friend. Liam's mouth was filled with cookie when he mumbled, "These are delicious." His friend rolled his eyes and smirked. "A way to prove your point." He held out his hand. "By the way, I'm Kellen." He gestured with his head to point toward Liam. "We were friends in California." "We were friends before that," Liam corrected. "True," Kellen agreed. "I lived here when I was a child, and my parents moved away when I was in second grade." The trend of people moving away and returning to Paradise Hills concerned Holly. She and Dax moved away. Holly returned too. She hoped Dax wouldn't return with the girl that he cheated on Holly with. One time, when we were in second grade, Kellen flipped his pencil. Kellen shook his head and looked away. "Not this story." His eyes told more about their friendship than anything either of them could say. Liam and Kellen had participated in quite a few shenanigans together. Undeterred by Kellen's reaction, Liam continued. It flew across the room in a perfect spin. I remember watching it and thinking, it's just like how it happens in the cartoons. You never told me that. Kellen turned to listen to the story. Yeah, don't you remember? Liam twirled his hand to mimic the motion of the pencil. Professional couldn't have done any better. When Kellen's face beamed at the compliment, Liam said, the pencil landed in our teacher's hair. It stuck in place. She turned around and the pencil was sticking out of her bun. We were 7. Liam pressed his lips tight to hold in the giggle. Kellen's chest shuddered as he tried to contain the humor. I pointed and laughed. You got us both in trouble. The tone in Kellen's voice told them that he didn't mind. We both had inside recess for a week. Liam shook his head to fake his dismay, and we've been best friends ever since. Yeah, it's too bad I live here and you're with all those half dressed women in sunshine in California. Liam turned to regard the tree. I've been thinking about buying a house here. No way! Kellen talked to Rebecca and Holly. You're my witness. He said he's coming back. Rebecca and Holly raised their eyebrows and nodded. Rebecca spoke first. We should get going. Our first appointment is at 10 tomorrow. They both got up from the bench. Rebecca had Holly's sweater in her tote and was getting ready to reach for it when Kellen and Liam exchanged a glance. Kellen cleared his throat. Holly, you mind if I talk with you for a minute? He pivoted to walk away from Liam and Rebecca. Holly asked Liam with her eyes what Kellen wanted. Liam shrugged and held up his hands. Holly didn't want to come across as rude, so she followed him. When they were a couple of steps away, Kellen said, I was wondering if you wanted to go out sometime. We could catch a movie and grab a bite to eat. It was the first time since she dated Dax that anyone had asked her out for a date. Holly's mother said when the time was right, life would bring people in her life. When she received the advice, Holly believed it. She never expected to come in the form of a hunky fireman. She had already seen both movies featured at the theater and had no desire to go back either. Maybe not a movie, but if you wanted to do something else, she suggested. It's Liam's movie. I thought we could watch it together and compare the man with the magic. Holly glanced over at Liam, who had cozied with Rebecca. She saw the setup. Liam wanted time alone with Rebecca. It took everything in Holly to be happy with her friend. She looked down at the ground and pushed aside some snow with her toe. I don't do well with suspense movies. I've tried in the past. Let's just say I lost my popcorn in a soda. Holly felt like the soda that lost its carbonation. She had this hot guy ask her out, and she couldn't accept the date. All because she didn't want to run out of the theater twice in one week. What are the odds of that happening? A breeze picked up, and a flurry of snow whirled around them. Holly used her mittened hand to shield her eyes. Kellen took her by the arm and led her toward the awning in front of the town hall. Behind them, they heard someone yell, Did someone trip the breaker? They searched behind them for the voice, then to determine what had provoked the question. Several people had gathered around the unlit Christmas tree. The absence of holiday lights created a hole of darkness in the middle of the town. The lights on the shops surrounding the square glowed as though nothing had happened. That is not good. Kim ran to join the crowd, and Holly followed behind her. Did someone pull the plug? All eyes scanned the area to find the errant cord that had to have been disconnected. The snow made it difficult, and the murmurs of, Where is it? Filled the air. Eldon came out of the jewelry store. He used a rock to clear away the snow around the base of the tree. It's right here. He pointed at the spot. It's headed in that direction. All eyes followed the imaginary line from the point to a generator that hummed. Several plugs extended from the outlets. Which one of these goes to the tree? Kellen tested the cords by unplugging them one at a time. Every time he pulled, lights attached to something else darkened. When he placed it back in the socket, it illuminated. After 4 attempts, he found the plug to the tree. By this time, a small crowd of men had formed around him. A short man who wore coveralls under his thick coat kneeled in front of the board. Have you tried swapping the plug with another one? Kellen stepped to the side and let the man try his suggestion. He placed the plug for a row of bushes in the slot that had been for the Christmas tree. The bushes glowed with lights that looked like sugar plums, while the Christmas tree remained dark. They did this with all the slots, and regardless of where they placed the cord for the Christmas tree lights, it remained dark. After 15 minutes of fiddling with the plugs, Cyrus, the town maintenance man, threw his hands in the air and exclaimed, "It has to be a bad bulb." Eldon rubbed the back of his neck as his eyes traveled to the top of the tree. "And all the years I've lived here, the tree has always been lit." "This is a bad sign," someone from the crowd said. An uneasy feeling crawled into Holly's stomach. She tried to push aside the thought, but it came back to her. Something in the town had gone wrong, and until they fixed it, the tree would remain dark. And that's the end of the chapter. I forgot about all that dark. It's been a while since I wrote it. I read it, but then, I forgot it. But that's the end of this, those two chapters. And what today is Thursday? More? Okay, just one more chapter. I was gonna be I'm like, just one more chapter. I'm the same way. I'm like, oh, what's gonna happen next? Okay, just one more chapter. The next chapter is you make me happy, Laura. Thank you. Thank you, Kim. Is just a super fan. At 7 o'clock Monday evening, Rebecca had Holly's cousin Ariel in her chair. Ariel, the last appointment of the day, had only needed trim and style. When they were finished, the group of women planned a short trip to the mall 30 miles away. Ariel, who had come home from college, added a fresh perspective to everything. Holly hoped his cousin would help with the ideas on what to get Madison. She wanted something practical that Madison could use frequently. At the same time, she wanted the present to convey that Madison was special. Holly threw the last of the towels she had finished washing in the dryer and joined the women in front of the salon. A shipment had arrived earlier in the day. On the chance they might have something that people would want for stocking stuffers, Holly stocked the shelves with shampoos and hairsprays, while Kim from the candy store sat in the chair across from Ariel. Kellen and another man walked by the front window. He waved at the woman and returned to the conversation with his friend. Kim sighed. "I wish you'd introduced me to him." According to Liam Lore, Kellen lived here once upon a time. Rebecca glided the hair straightener down a long chunk of Ariel's auburn hair. "I thought I recognized him." Kim pressed the button on the side of the chair. The hydraulic system lifted the chair 2 inches. Holly was glad Kellen hadn't stopped in the store. He asked her out to see Liam's movie. When she suggested they do something else, he let the issue drop. He is the president of the Liam fan club. She reconsidered her answer. Then again, the faulty lights on the Christmas tree took up everyone's attention. Kim selected a bottle of hairspray from Holly's table. She squirted her bangs and smoothed them down with her hand. "He can't be any more than Liam is." "Thank you for the introduction, but please don't do that ever again." "What's wrong with Liam?" If Holly wasn't such good friends with him, she'd have thought he was perfect boyfriend material. Liam was witty and willing to step outside the prescribed Hollywood hunk rule. She thought back on the time they slid down the hill. Afterward, he invited her along with her nieces to watch the Santa Claus movie on the big screen television. His parents had enough pillows to have a slumber party for half the town. All 6 of them cuddled together on the floor, munched on popcorn, and enjoyed the movie. Liam's mother made them pizza rolls. For that brief period of time, Holly forgot the world and all the worries it brought her. On the drive home, all her niece Savannah could talk about was how Liam, the person, differed from the gun toting guy she saw on the commercials on television. He didn't even try to beat up anyone, not even once. Holly had to laugh at her niece's way of thinking. While she knew movies were pretend, the stories were real to her. Ariel leaned forward to get a better look at her freshly styled hair. She gave a thumbs up. "Thank you. I never get it right when I try to do it myself." "Which is why you go to a professional," Rebecca joked. Kim swiveled in the chair to face the center of the salon. "Liam's range of topics centers on 2 things: his movies and his movies." "True story." Rebecca set the hair straightener on the counter to admire Ariel's hair. "While you talked with Kellen, Liam asked me what I thought about Silent Night, Deadly Night. When I told him that I hadn't had time to see it, he lost all interest in me." "Liam, are we talking about the same Liam?" Holly grabbed a pair of scissors to slice through the tape holding the box together. She set them back in the caddy on the counter and collapsed the box so it would fit through the slot in the recycling bin. When he's with me, he talks about his family and friends. Earlier that day, she texted him a picture of a teenager who had come in the salon wearing a t shirt with his face on the front. She captioned the snapshot saying, "This is too much." He replied, "It pays the bills, lol." The Liam she interacted with was a person who, over coffee, told her that he loved acting because it was a way to help people step out of their troubles for an hour or two. As if speaking his name summoned the man, Liam walked through the doors of the salon. His eyes scanned the room until they found Holly, who rose from being bent down behind the counter. He approached the counter and stepped forward. "Just the person I was looking for." Liam smiled politely at Rebecca, Kim, and Ariel and held out his phone to show Holly something on the screen. "I couldn't decide. Should I get this?" He showed her a framed black and white picture of the tree from the view across the street. "Or this?" In the second screen, he had a picture of a long silver necklace that had charms. "You're kind of obsessed with that tree." Holly pulled the phone closer to see the details of the charms. Liam smiled softly in response. "Too much with the tree?" Holly held out her fingers to show a gap. "Just a little." She pointed at the picture of the necklace. "You could get charms representing each of your brothers and your nephews. Then your mom could wear it as an accessory. Women love bragging about their sons. People will ask about the necklace, and at first, she'll tell them who bought it and then explain what each of the charms mean." Liam swiped to flip back and forth between the screens. Each time he examined the picture, his reactions changed. He smiled at the tree. His brow wrinkled at the necklace. He pivoted to compare the tree outside the window to the one on the phone. He faced Holly and looked down at the picture of the necklace. Finally, he shrugged and said, "I guess you're right. Thanks for your help." He waved at Holly's cousins and friends and said, "Nice seeing you again," turned and walked out the door. The women's eyes followed him as he made his way to the jewelry store. Off in the distance, a blue crane rolled to approach the Christmas tree. Unlit, the tree put a damper on the holiday spirit. It was a constant reminder that something was left undone. Holly turned to face her friends and returned to the conversation they were having before Liam interrupted with his question. "See?" Holly held up her hand to emphasize her point. "Not one mention about his movie." Deep inside, she suspected the cause was Liam's disinterest in her. Sure, they were friends, but as soon as the holidays were over, he was off to do promotions for his movie. Because he wouldn't see her anytime soon, he didn't have to impress her. She got the real Liam, where her friends got the polished version of the man. As she wiped at the glass counter that displayed the hair products with a feather duster, Holly got lost in her musings. After watching her sister and mother go through the ringer because their husbands didn't appreciate them, she didn't mind that Liam didn't like her. Or at least, that was the lie she'd believe until her heart learned to accept its boundaries. Just read Kim and Laura talking in the chat. Okay. Um, there's a little more to this chapter. Now, garlands of holly strung around the window of the cafe. The bright green stood out against the whitewashed entrance to the cafe. Warm thoughts of Holly came to Lamb as he made the correlation between Holly the plant and Holly the person. Anytime he talked with her, Liam's world centered. However, it could have been the small town of Paradise Hills. People didn't seem to care that he was an actor featured in the movie playing in the local theater. If he were in Hollywood, he'd have been caught in dozens of cell phone cameras, and a couple paparazzis would have interrupted his meal. Then again, their lack of interest in who he was made his search for the elusive woman who captured his heart even more difficult. He had asked more than a dozen women who wore red cardigans what they thought about the movie. None of them had seen it. One promised to check it out after the holidays. The darkened tree in the middle of the town square caught Liam's eye. His heart hitched itself to a foreboding that he only had so much time before his chance to find the woman would vanish. The longer it took to find her, the more he realized that she was his one. He tilted his head while watching a group of men bustle around the base of the tree. Last night they tried all kinds of solutions, but none of them worked. Like them, Liam was probably looking at the situation wrong. Maybe he wouldn't find this mystery woman near the tree. Just because it brought his father happiness didn't mean it was meant to come to him in the same way. Liam waited at the table reserved for his family and observed the pre holiday activity outside the windows. Across the street from the cafe in front of the used bookstore, several people gathered around and sang Christmas carols. Bundled in coats, hats, and mittens, they huddled together. 3 or 4 people read out of one songbook. Liam couldn't hear the music but got the gist of what was going on when all the singers stopped to stare at one guy who swayed as he sang. They laughed and one by one joined in to pick up where they left off. If he wasn't waiting for his family, Liam would have gone out to join them. He wanted to be a part of something with people who liked him because they liked him, not because of who he was. He looked down at his phone to see that he had several notifications from his social media accounts. The server placed a glass on the table and asked Liam if he wanted anything while he waited. Liam replied, "I'm fine with water, thank you," and waited for the waiter to move on to someone else. He checked his account and read the comments on the video he posted of his nephew sliding down the hill. People inquired about the woman who played with them. It was Holly and her nieces. Liam was about to post that it was a family friend. Before he pressed the send button, he heard his agent's voice in the back of his head. When he was on social media, Liam had to consider his image. The first thing his agent Larry had taught him was how to be a regular guy's actor. He'd taken pictures of Liam with fans and posted them to Liam's account. It was a way to tell people that they were special. To maintain the image, Liam backspaced to delete the original reply and changed it to, "When I have chance to spend time with my fans, I embrace it." Almost immediately, people replied with hearts and wishes that they could have been there for a snow day. Satisfied with the results, Liam put his phone away. Another thought came to him. He took out the phone and texted Holly. "Thanks again for help with my mother's gift. You are a gift guru." She replied, "Thanks for stopping by. It was nice to see you again." His father walked in on Liam smiling. He matched Liam's reaction and asked, "Who's the special someone?" "Nobody special. It's just Holly." Liam set the phone to silent and shoved it back in his pocket. His father's face fell. Liam cringed. He had given the wrong answer on an important test. The discomfort brought him a new conclusion. "You weren't trying to set me up with her, were you?" It made sense. Holly's mother, Susan, worked with Liam's mother and brother. Liam's parents were friends with Holly's parents. "Not really, but I'd be lying if I didn't say I hope there was some type of spark between you two. You seem happier when you talk about her." "I don't talk about her that much." Before he said anything, Liam was about to mention to his father that Holly helped him with his mother's presents. "Do I?" Okay, he did talk about her a lot. She was different than other women he met. She kept him grounded. It didn't seem to matter to her that he was in the movies or had a lot of money. He liked that she appreciated him for who he was and not what he did. His father raised a brow. "Do you really need an answer?" "It's just that I met someone special. I'm trying to make things work with her." Liam hadn't lied. Technically, he did meet the owner of the angel pin. The next item on his agenda was finding her. Please tell. Liam's heart raced, thinking about how everything in the world seemed perfect when the mystery woman curled into his arm. Then his mother approached the table. He straightened and averted his eyes in her direction to signal to his father to drop the conversation. His mother set the strap of her bag on the back of the chair and leaned in to kiss Liam's father on the cheek. "They still haven't figured out what's wrong with the Christmas tree?" Liam's father frowned, and all of them leaned to get a better view of the tree outside the window. The sun, in the beginning stages of setting, cast streaks of orange throughout the graying sky. The top of the tree protruded through the colors as though it also received nourishment to grow from the sky. "I hope they figure out what went wrong soon," his father replied. "It doesn't feel the same without the tree being lit." Clayton and Cole scampered into the store. Their father, Mark, hurried to keep up with them. The boys slowed when they reached the table and pulled out their chairs. Their grandmother rose to help them. "Let's take off those coats, boys." Clayton worked to unzip his coat. Cole held out his arms to wait for help. He grinned to show his grandmother the gap in front of his mouth. "This is the best month. First, I got $2 from the Tooth Fairy, and next week Santa will be here." He gazed up at his father for confirmation. "In 6 days?" Mark nodded. Yes. Let's count how many days until Santa will be here. He held up his hands. We have the Christmas stroll tomorrow. He held up his index finger to signal number one. You have the holiday program the day after tomorrow. A second finger joined the first. Then we have the holiday party. He held out his other hand. After that, we have one more day of school and 2 days of rest. His second hand joined the first to make five. After the Christmas Eve service, we open one present and go to bed. Cole tapped at each finger as he counted. When he got to the last finger, he exclaimed, 5 days until Santa comes. Liam's eyes drifted toward the front of the window of the restaurant. He'd hoped he'd find the woman from the theater by Christmas. He had already had what he'd say to her when he met her planned. Holly, passing by the window with Rebecca and her two other friends, pulled him back to the present. The waiter stepped into his field of vision, and Liam returned to enjoy dinner with his family. He had 5 days until Christmas. It was going to take a Christmas miracle for him to follow in his father's footsteps. And that's the end of that chapter. And I don't even know the numbers anymore. Okay, so Kim, I will read again tomorrow so you can find out what happens to the tree. Because my dinner's almost done. Okay. Is it okay if I read tomorrow some more? Yeah, same time. And I'll remember to post an event, so it'll like do a reminder. Thank you, Kim. You guys have a good night, you and Laura. You know what? We should probably do like a retreat one time. We'll get Kim and Laura. Okay. Thanks, Laura. Okay. Okay. I'll see you guys tomorrow. But I'm thinking about that retreat now. You have my wheels spinning. All right. Good night.